All right, it's so great to be here and to open the show. And of course, it's so great to have you here, Hiroki.
Thank you for having me.
So you've had a fantastic year, but maybe let's start with explaining what GoCardless is in a few words.
Yeah.
I've rarely seen a startup name that is as self-explanatory as it is, because the name says it right here.
Yeah,
you don't believe in card payments. You think companies should go cardless and switch to direct debits.
Yeah.
Why is direct debit so powerful?
Yeah, so what we do is we help businesses with recurring models to collect those payments via direct debit mechanisms. And the reason we think that's interesting is because obviously there's been a lot of disruption and innovation on payments in general, but it's all been focused on e-commerce and retail. And as we see more and more businesses move to recurring models like subscription models, invoicing models, like usage-based models, that kind of way of taking payments doesn't work very well. And so what we're focused on is building technology on top of the rails that are designed specifically for these recurring business models and making them much more easily usable online and more globally available as well.
And it seems like the perfect solution for like utility bills, for instance. If you want to pay for electricity, water, there's a very low fee.
Yeah.
There's much less like dropouts because it doesn't expire over time.
Yeah.
But what about some other areas that could take advantage of direct debits? Is it just for utilities?
No, absolutely not. So we work with about 50,000 businesses collecting around $15 billion a year through the platform. And it's a huge, wide range of businesses, everything from really small, one-man band kind of accountants, professional service firms, which are billing their clients on a regular basis, all the way through to much larger organizations, working with bigger technology companies like DocuSign or like Xero to help them to enable their customers to get paid. So it's a very wide range of use cases. And especially as we're seeing more and more of the economy move to these kind of subscription-based models, we're seeing a wider range of industries adopting this kind of way of getting paid.
Okay, one more question about direct debits.
Yeah.
I think customers are pretty happy about sharing credit card numbers online. Is there some friction when you're asking customers to enter banking information directly?
Yeah.
And not just a credit card number?
Well, it's funny because when we first started, we always had this sort of worry, right? We thought about this a lot, and especially when we were in the US, when we first started, and obviously in the US, everyone's very focused on credit cards. So it was something that we worried about a lot, but actually we've seen that that's not been the case at all. And as we've kind of expanded and gone across lots of different markets, we've done quite a lot of research into the way that people prefer to pay for things. And so, in most European countries and also a lot of other countries around the world as well, these kind of direct debit mechanisms are the way that people prefer to make these kind of payments, right? They like the fact that they can see what's going on from within their bank account. They like the fact that it's more reliable, so they don't have to keep on, changing their information all the time. And so, it's like the number one way for customers, preference-wise, to pay in a lot of different markets. So actually, that's not been a problem at all.
And is there some protection against fraud, for instance, if a fraudulent company is using direct debit to take money out of you?
Yeah, so there's obviously it varies from country to country, but most countries will have like a kind of a guarantee scheme in place to protect customers if something goes wrong. So it's a very safe way of paying.
So GoCardless has been around for 8 years, 9 years now?
Yeah, it's I guess we're coming up to 9 years, yeah.
And in the middle of building this business, you had an accident, a terrible accident.
Yes.
I'm sure it has been a challenge as well because you had to spend some time in a hospital.
I did indeed.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I had a cycling accident in London about just over 3 years ago, which left me paralyzed from the chest down. So that's why I use this wheelchair. And yeah, I had to be in hospital for quite a long time. So I was sort of out of action, so to speak, for about 3 or 4 months, where I was just sort of living in hospital and recovering. So it was quite a challenge, like obviously personally, but also professionally. From the perspective of being able to continue to run the company and I think that I was quite lucky because we were established enough and a big enough company that we were able to keep on going without me being around. And I had a very supportive set of investors, a supportive board, supportive team, and then also supportive family to give me the space to kind of recover before I went back to work.
Let's talk about the team in particular, because I'm sure while you were recovering, you couldn't be here day to day, like actively talking with the team and interacting with the team.
Yeah.
How did that play out with the team?
Well, I mean, I think that for me it was actually quite a positive experience in a way, because obviously when you've been running a company for a long time, you kind of get stuck working on lots of different things. And I think what I realized was that actually the team were ready to take a kind of a step up and take on more responsibility and cover for me basically, right? Because I wasn't around, so I wasn't doing anything. And so it was great to see the way that the team kind of came together and stood up to the challenge, and then actually it gave me an opportunity to, when I went back to work, rethink what my role was and how could I add the most value and have the biggest impact for the company. And so it was actually quite a positive experience, I have to say. So it was kind of a very weird, sort of bittersweet kind of experience, because obviously on the one hand, personally it was very, very challenging and it's been tough, but from a professional perspective, it's actually been quite positive.
I'm very impressed by the fact that you're saying it's positive.
Yeah, well, you have to take some kind of silver linings from it, I guess. Yeah.
And so you said you had to rethink the way you work and your role in the company.
Yeah.
Is there a change in the framework around you, like new leaders that are willing to take some more responsibilities?
Yeah, so I mean, since I've come back from my injury, the company's grown a lot. So I think we were probably around 100 people when my accident happened. We're now around 400 people about 3 years later. So we've scaled the team quite a bit. We've brought in a lot of kind of executives and people to help run the company as well during that time. So it has changed quite a lot. But I think what's been, for me, quite a sort of a useful, I guess, outcome from the whole experience was that because when I went back, I basically made myself redundant, right? Like I wasn't doing anything. It meant that I could be very selective about what I focused on and what I continue to let the team do. And I think I realized that actually, without being conscious of it, I was micromanaging a lot before this injury. I was getting involved in a lot of things where actually the team did a much better job without me there, right? So I think it made me realize that it's better to give the team more kind of, I guess, latitude and more scope to kind of run with things, and then I just kind of focus on a few bigger issues.
Yeah, as you mentioned briefly, you've come back stronger than ever because the company is doing really well right now. So this year, I think you've raised $75 million.
Yeah.
You said you have 50,000 clients and you handle like billions of dollars in transactions.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have a new focus right now. You want to push further and further when it comes to global expansion. How do you think such a local payment system can become a global company?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that for me, this is one of these examples of something that in the early days was a really big frustration, but we've managed to turn into an opportunity because one of the problems with these direct debit systems is that they're very tied to the banking system, right?
Yeah.
And so as a result, they're very geographically constrained. Like every country has its own version of a direct debit system. And unlike the card networks, like the Visa and the MasterCards of the world, there is no kind of global way of collecting payments like this. And so what we've been focused on over the last couple of years is building out that global network, which connects all of these direct debit systems together into a single platform. And so, we've gone from, I guess, a product that was very UK focused initially to now being able to collect payment across over 30 countries, which covers about 70% of recurring payment volume globally. And so, that's been a really big challenge to build that. But I think that what we think is that by doing this, we've built something very unique because we're able to empower businesses that have customers all around the world to collect payment via the mechanism that makes the most sense. without having to worry about lots of different partners and lots of different payment models all around the world. And so, that's taking us into new markets, helping us to have conversations with businesses with a much larger footprint from a global perspective. And we think we've kind of created something very unique there.
So you mentioned Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be fair to say that you want to become the sort of Visa of direct debit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
Or MasterCard, I don't know which one you prefer.
I mean, they're both great companies, but either would be good. No, I think they're great for what they do, right? I mean, I think the point here is that a lot of the time people go, okay, you're competing with these other payment companies, and that is kind of true, but actually payments is a really large market, right? And the reality is it's not a single market, it's a set of quite fragmented markets, fragmented both from a geographic perspective, but also from a use case perspective. And so, what we're not trying to go and I know that our name is GoCardless, but we're not trying to go and say, okay, well, let's go and eat Visa and MasterCard's lunch. I think that cards make a lot of sense for retail and e-commerce, but they don't make as much sense for these kind of recurring business models. And so we think that there needs to be different ways of collecting depending on the use case. And so, for me, what we're really doing is building a global network dedicated to recurring payments. And that we don't think exists in the world. So it's not so much a competition, it's more of a different path.
And one of the main arguments against card payments is that fees are kind of high, and you have lower fees in general, I would say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the business. Do you think it makes sense over the long term to take low fees like that, and you're going to become, profitable at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, one of the reasons why card networks are quite expensive is because there's a lot of parties in between each transaction. And if you think about the way in which the card networks were built, and they were built in a world where the internet didn't exist, right? So it was the problem they were trying to solve was, how do I pay for my meal in a restaurant when that restaurant has no connection to the banking system and the internet doesn't exist? So it's a very different challenge, and as a result, you have a lot of these different players in between each transaction. So you have the processors, the acquirers, the networks themselves, the issuers, and each of those parties needs to take a cut of every transaction. Right, so there's this kind of structural problem where you have interchange when it comes to cards, and it's very difficult for the industry to get below that or cut that down, because at some point someone has to either disappear or take a lot less margin. And so one of the benefits of these direct debit systems is that because they're built directly into the banking system, that there isn't that same sort of layered effect in terms of a number of parties in between each transaction. And so, we think that it's possible to offer lower fees in a quite sustainable way because of the nature of the mechanism that we're building on top of. And I think that, probably in the long term, this is kind of a trend that we'll see across all payments, right? Where, as this becomes more commoditized and, it becomes easier to transact and there's multiple options, I think that we'll naturally see that fees go down. But at the same time, scale goes up, right? I think that payment companies are becoming increasingly global, and so I think that that I'm not too worried about the sustainability of the model.
Even though you hired a ton of people this year, does it make sense? Let's look at revenue today. What does it look like when it comes to profits or losses?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, we focus on two things, right? One is how profitable and sustainable is the underlying model, right? So, can we create good gross margins? Are the customers that we onboard profitable to serve? That kind of thing. And then there's growth, right? And what we're really trading off between is, profitability, sort of an overall basis with growth, because we can always be profitable just by investing less in growth, and then, we'll be profitable, but we won't grow as fast. And our view is that we really want to be investing in growth as much as possible. So we focus less on the short-term profitability because we have a lot of confidence in the underlying economics of the model, and then we invest that, sort of lack of profit into growth in the future.
So you can still see a clear path to profitability?
Oh, always, yeah. I mean, I think that for us, we're always in a position where if we want to be profitable, we can just slow down increasing investment and then wait for the revenue to catch up because it's always naturally growing. So it's very easy to be profitable if we want to.
Let's switch gear a bit. A few weeks ago, you announced a partnership with Transferwise, a company not far from GoCardless in London. Essentially, well, tell us how it works exactly.
Yeah, so I guess when we were talking about this global network that we've been building, one of the big challenges is that because you're collecting payment directly from someone's bank account, you can only collect in the local currency, right? So, if I'm a business based in Germany and I have a customer in Australia, I can collect directly from their bank account using our platform, but I can only collect on Australian dollars. And if you're a really large company with a lot of sophistication and operations around the world, that might not be a problem because you probably have employees in Australia, you have a bank account in Australia, but a lot of businesses don't have that, right? And so one of the things that's been really important when we think about this network is the ability to collect payment from anywhere in our platform to anywhere else in our platform without worrying about the currency. And so that obviously leads to FX. And when we were building that capability, we wanted to partner with the best provider. And for us, Transferwise a really great partner. We have very shared kind of roots and also very shared sort of culture in terms of believing a lot in transparency, in simplicity. And so, it was a very natural fit when we were thinking about how to build this into the network. And what this partnership enables us to do is enables us to open up the network that we've built to a much wider variety of businesses, no matter where they're based and what size they are.
So it also means that if something goes wrong with Transferwise, it could be an issue for you. Why did you think it would be better to partner with a company instead of building this feature in-house?
Well, I think that that's kind of a decision that you make all the time, right? When software companies are building their products, I think it's really important that you find your area of focus, right? It's very easy to say, okay, well, you could make the same argument about using AWS or Google Cloud. It doesn't make sense for you to go and start going and building cloud infrastructure if you're building a SaaS platform, right? And so, I think that this is a decision that we make all the time. And I think that for us, we see that our area of focus is building that connectivity into all of these direct debit systems and then building technology on top of them to make them really easy to use and making them much better than if you went and built the integration yourself. And that FX isn't really part of that core focus for us. So, I think that it's a really core part of what enables the network to thrive. But we think that we're much better placed partnering with someone like Transferwise that has a lot more scale and a lot more expertise on this than trying to rebuild what they've built from scratch.
Let's talk about other payment tech companies.
Yeah.
Think about Stripe, Adyen. Like many of them started with card payments, but they've also expanded to direct debits in one way or another. You're probably the expert in the room in this space.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about competition with these sort of general payment players?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the first thing that we think about is these are really large markets. So we don't think it's a problem to have competition. We actually think it's a good thing because it pushes you to try and improve. And so I don't think that payments is going to be a market where there's going to be a single winner, right? You're seeing really, really large companies be built, and even just now today, you have PayPal, Stripe, Adyen. These are all companies that are worth tens of billions, or if not hundreds of billions of dollars. So there's definitely a lot of space to thrive, right? So we don't worry too much about competition per se. I think that for us, the way that we think about differentiating and building something unique is by taking that different focus, right? So what we see most payment companies focusing on is e-commerce and retail, and a lot of the innovation right now is happening by merging retail and e-commerce, right? So you're seeing companies like Adyen and Stripe and PayPal buying building point of sale technology so that they can be in store as well as online, that kind of thing, right? That's a huge space and a huge problem. But I think that as a result, when they build technology on top of these direct debit systems, and when they build technology for these recurring models, it's really like their secondary focus. Maybe it's 10% of their focus, maybe 5% of their focus, but it's clearly not 100% of their focus. And for us, the way we differentiate is by saying, okay, well, look, we're going to be 100% focused on these recurring business models, and we're going to build the best possible way of collecting recurring payments. And that focus leads you down a different path with a different solution. And we think by taking that clear focus, we can build something very unique. So I guess the way we think about differentiation is through the perspective of focus.
So one last question, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to pull Stripe and expand to card payments, for instance?
No, we don't have any plans for that, no.
All right, thank you very much, Hiroki.
Thank you for having me. Cool.